afternoon. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to the Press Club of Japan. Sorry about this technical issue. It's my pleasure today to welcome Mr. Lobsang Sangay. He's the Prime Minister of the Tibetan government-in-exile. My name is Khaldu Azhari. I'm the president of this club. And I'm moderating this event that will be for 30 minutes. We start with 10 minutes presentation in English, and that will be followed by 20 minutes questions and answers. And the talk today is about the situation in Tibet and the expectations under the new American administration. What are the possibilities and the prospects? And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest speaker, Mr. Sangay. Thank you.
Thank you, Khaldu Azhari. And good to be here after 5 years, I think. I came here in 2012. I think everybody's interested, and I was also queuing that maybe I should start with US President Donald Trump and his take on Tibet. As you know, the former President George W. Bush met with His Holiness the Dalai Lama 4 times, and President Obama also met with His Holiness the Dalai Lama 4 times. And President Obama's White House, each time he met with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, they have always supported the middle way approach of the for the Tibetan people. Which is to seek genuine autonomy within China and within the framework of the Chinese constitution. Recently, at the confirmation hearing of the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, he also agreed in a statement that if he is confirmed, he will continue to support the dialogue between the representative of the Chinese government and representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and/or Tibetan government exile. That's what it says in that statement. So we welcome that because it seems the Trump administration will continue the past tradition of the US government of supporting the dialogue between the envoys of the Dalai Lama and Chinese representative. And in that same statement, he was asked whether he would meet with His Holiness the Dalai Lama or not, and the Secretary of State said affirmatively yes. So our expectation is that, and our hope is that President Donald Trump, like President Obama and George W. Bush, would welcome His Holiness the Dalai Lama to the White House and continue to support the middle way approach policy based on which dialogue between the envoys of the Dalai Lama and Chinese representative will continue. As far as the Chinese government is concerned, under Xi Jinping, from one account, he has consolidated his position, forming various committees on security and economic matters, and being appointed as the chairperson or the president of all these committees. And then recently has become also the core leader of the Chinese leadership. But as far as issue of Tibet is concerned, it has not changed or improved under his leadership for the last several years. I hope that by the end of this year, when the 19th plenum of the Communist Party takes place, and maybe by April or March or April of next year, when the National People's Congress meet in Beijing, when the new leadership under Xi Jinping will take over, hopefully then they will review the present hardline policies, which is not helping the situation, and they will come out with more liberal policies towards Tibetan people. Now, based on past 50 years, we don't have any reason to be optimistic because the situation has been quite repressive for all these decades. But one silver lining is that when Hu Yaobang was in the leadership, he had liberal policies towards Tibetan people. One proposal that he put forward was 80-20, which means 80% of the officers or staff in Tibet should be Tibetans and 20% should be Han Chinese. Along with that policy, more liberal policies towards preservation of Tibetan language, religious freedom, all these were issued during his time. And as we all know, the Xi Jinping's father, Xi Zhongxun, was very close to Hu Yaobang. In fact, Xi Zhongxun was the last man standing with Hu Yaobang. Hopefully, the son Xi Jinping will continue his father's legacy and then really review the policies towards Tibetan people. In second term, like President Obama touched on and dealt with sensitive issues like Cuba and Iran and other issues, hopefully Xi Jinping will look at Tibet as one of those low-hanging fruit, actually, to be resolved peacefully. Because in China as a whole, I think 99% of Chinese don't lean one way or the other on the issue of Tibet, as long as Tibetans don't seek independence, as long as territorial integrity and sovereignty of China is not challenged. And as far as Tibetans are also concerned, the middle way approach is a win-win proposition. Hence, Chinese leadership will be more courageous and deal with this low-hanging fruit, which is the issue of Tibet. So that's our hope. And then we are also being in Japan. It just coincided that when I planned this trip to Japan, I did not plan it to coincide with Honorable Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's trip to Washington, D.C. and golf time with President Donald Trump in Florida, but it looks like headlines dominated by the news here. I'm sure you all are also preoccupied with that news. So hence Tibet issue becomes kind of a secondary issue in this context. So that's a karmic coincidence, not so good for Tibet issue at this time of the year in Japan. But it's good to see President Donald Trump meeting with Shinzo Abe. It seems that personally and politically and policy-wise, things have started pretty well with the two leadership. I think Shinzo Abe is the only one who met Donald Trump when he was president-elect, and he is the second head of the government who met after the election. So among head of governments, I think he has the most inside view as to what Donald Trump does during formal meetings, at luncheon, and also at dinner time. So that's advantage Japan. And hopefully, from what I hear, is that they would like to have a coordinated efforts towards international affairs. And hopefully in that international affairs, Tibet will be part of the discourse. And we would also like to see, Japan also supporting the middle way approach of the Tibetan people, like the US government does, and then have joint or coordinated efforts towards Chinese government on the issue of Tibet. So with that note, I finish my 10 minutes. I think 27 seconds earlier than the chairman allowed me. So I'll end here and answer your questions if you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We would like to start the questions. Please proceed to the front mic and state your name and affiliation. We start with journalists. Who would like to take the first question, please? Yes? All right. While you are thinking about the question, maybe I could start.
Yep.
What is the international support for your exile government? Most countries, they say they support one China policy. Are there some, countries who support otherwise? Thank you.
The Tibetan administration middle way approach, which is to seek genuine autonomy within China and within the framework of the Chinese constitution, does not contradict one China policy. Hence the White House, on the one hand, they support one China policy. At least previous presidents have always expressed a support one China policy, and at the same time support middle way approach because they see they two going together. So there's no contradiction between the two. Hence, for the Chinese government also, if they really want to see or seek support for one China policy from international community, all the reasons they should give genuine autonomy for the Tibetan people. Because our argument is very simple. You ask for one China policy as the bottom line. Sovereignty and territorial integrity cannot be compromised. And we say, okay, we will abide by that. Now give us genuine autonomy as per the Chinese constitution. As per your laws, you say these are the things Tibetans should enjoy. Tibetans should have their own language, administrative mechanism, all the things that you say are in the laws of China be implemented in Tibetan areas, which will take it as genuine autonomy. So there is no contradiction between one China and middle way approach. Hence, this is a win-win proposition for the Chinese government as well. Now, if the Chinese government don't grant us genuine autonomy as per Chinese laws, then it exposes their double standard. On the one hand, they mandate or require other governments to abide by one China policy. On the other hand, the Tibetan proposal, which is within the context of one China, is not implemented.
Thank you. Yes, please. Kauri.
Oh, you have to come all the way.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Kaori Hitomi from Associated Press, and I would like to hear more of your opinion about the U.S. policy towards Tibet. Why you are rather optimistic about U.S. policy to continue, U.S. new administration to continue its policy towards your people and your intention. At the same time, President Trump has repeatedly, basically his policy is America first. And it can be interpreted in either way. But I'd like to hear a little bit more why you could believe in what, for instance, Secretary Tillerson has stated in his statement, because it could go either way once again. So I'd like to hear more of the reasoning why you think so, or if not, how would you like to approach with this totally new administration?
The Tibetans are Buddhist, so they are innately, I can't say optimistic, but always hopeful. And also Tibetan freedom struggle is also based on hope, because unless you keep your hope alive, you give up. So I think basis of our optimism or hopefulness is partly because we are Buddhists. Because as you know, in Buddhism, it's very simple. It says life is suffering. There is suffering in life. That's the bottom line. That might be quite fatalistic and nihilistic from one point of view, but on the other hand, it's very liberating. Once you accept there is suffering in life, there is tragedy in Tibet, rest of life is bonus. So that's how we measure things, So, and you have to be hopeful. You have to keep going. Hence, we are hopeful. But part of the practical reasons is because if you look at past governments of the US, George W. Bush, the son, George H.W. Bush, the father, Clinton, Obama, doesn't matter which president from which party came to power in the US or in India, whichever party came to the government, they formed the government, they have always supported the Tibet issue. And also in 1991, there is a Tibet Policy Act adopted by the US Congress, unanimously passed by the US Congress, and it is a policy of the US government to support the dialogue between envoys of the Dalai Lama and the representative of the Chinese government. So there's a Congress mandate, and past governments have always supported. So on the one hand, I can completely understand why with President Donald Trump, the unpredictability, uncertainty has created a bit anxiousness and a lot of discourse. But it kind of reminds me also when George W. Bush was elected, there was a similar discourse, but less electrified, less heightened, because at the same time, and at that time said the same thing. Oh, he's from Texas. He was only a governor. He doesn't have any experience in foreign policy. Look at his slang. Look at his pronunciation. The words he used. Those were the discourse generally around the world. But I think his one of the biggest legacy of George W. Bush was foreign policy, the Afghan war and the Iraq war, right? So with Donald Trump also, as we give him time, as he settles in his office, there are a lot of things that office will settle you, because I myself was educated in US and spent 16 years in Boston as a Patriots fan and a Red Sox fan. So, after when I took over in 2011, except for Red Sox and Patriots and academic matters, I didn't have any exposure to administration and politics per se. But office has this way of teaching you things and making you more realistic and more predictable as we move along. So we have to wish Donald Trump also the best, because it matters what US does and what US says to everybody. Hence, let's wait what he does. And if we want to criticize, we'll get plenty of time in the next 4 years to do so. So from Tibetan point of view, let's wait and let's remain hopeful and make the request as I'm trying to do. Yeah. So that's the basis of my hopefulness. It's innate and practical.
Thank you. Yes, please.
So, if the Tibetan government in exile were to attain its political objectives, would you support the continuation of a secular administration within Tibet as it has been under Chinese government rule, or would you support the reintroduction of a traditional religious structure as it was under the Dalai Lama?
Your name, please, and affiliation.
Sorry, Christian Slape, student at Temple University.
Now, when you use the word, now I'm thinking, where is that question coming from? You're talking about the past religious system under the Dalai Lama, or the new secular system that present exile administration have, right? So now it's quite loaded, though. I'm wondering whether that past religious system that you're talking about came from Xinhua News Agency or is your own thinking. Because as a Tibetan, you have to always think there's someone behind the story. But I think moving forward, it will be a secular administration. Because in 2011, His Holiness Dalai Lama has separated church and the state very clearly. And then when I got elected, he said, Dalai Lama has always been both the religious and political leaders, now no more. There was a lot of resistance from the Tibetan side, a lot of appeals against that decision, because Tibetans wanted him to continue as the political leader as well. In the context of Syria and Assad, you can clearly see many political leaders not giving up power. He gave up political power voluntarily, willingly, and happily. So hence, I got elected as both the political and administrative head of the Tibetan people. That will continue. If we are to return to Tibet, that will continue. If we are to remain exiled, that will continue. This is a far-sighted vision of His Holiness Dalai Lama, because he doesn't want Tibetan movement, Tibetan people to depend solely on him. He wants to institutionalize democracy and democratic system to take forward the Tibetan freedom struggle.
Yes. All right. Do you expect to meet Prime Minister Shinzo Abe this trip?
When I came here in 2012, April 2012, Madam Sakurai and then leader of the opposition party, Shinzo Abe, was my main host. Actually, he hosted me in the Parliament House in Japan, of Japan, as well as in a couple of forums. I met him 4 or 5 times at that time. But after he took over, I have not made attempt to meet him, because given the protocol, how belligerent Chinese government can get, I think it's best avoid that kind of headlines and then go about doing your own things. But tomorrow I will be meeting quite a lot, number of members of parliament in the Japanese parliament. So I'm looking forward to it. Yes.
Thank you. We still have time for questions, and I know you have a lot of questions. So, all right. So,
actually, talking about this, how sensitive the Chinese government can get. Recently, I was invited for dinner at the U.S. ambassador's place in Delhi, and Richard Gay was the main guest, and there was a cabinet minister from the Indian government as well. So after a few days, the cabinet minister Kiren Rijiju, he tweeted, I did not, he tweeted with the photographs, praising the ambassador Verma for his hard work, and Richard Gay for being his friendship. So he released a couple of photographs. In all the photographs, I was not there because the ambassador and the minister were sitting on the other side. That was the photograph. And there was one photograph of some people standing on this side. And except for my nose and cheek, there was nothing. But next day, the Chinese foreign minister criticized for hosting, for my presence at the U.S. ambassador's residence. Now, then the headlines was, Chinese government criticized Xi having dinner at the U.S. Embassy. Now there was Richard Gay, Hollywood actor, Indian cabinet minister, the ambassador was there, but that was the headlines. So my position gets me in very tricky positions. So I want to avoid that kind of situation with the leaders in the Japanese government as well. But privately, yes, you meet a lot of people and share our views quite frankly, and then it's better to get things done and then to be on the headlines for 15 minutes and make our relationship quite complicated in the future.
Right. Maybe you might see him suddenly in the street and then some paparazzi. More question? Yeah? Go ahead if you want. Yes.
Hi, I'm Marina, and I'm a student at Waseda University. So you mentioned in your presentation that 99% of the Chinese don't lean on one way or the other. So how important is the public perception and pushing for your government's autonomy? Thank you.
Yeah, public perception is very important, because leaders normally go by public opinion. But as far as Tibet issue is concerned, despite the fact that Xinhua News Agency and Global Times and all the media, CCTV cover issue of Tibet one way, but I think general public, the Han Chinese population as a whole, I've talked to many of them. They really don't care about Tibet issue because it's a remote place. It's about 6 million Tibetans, which is half the population of China. So it does not matter, does not concern them on a day-to-day living. So it's an isolated, peripheral issue as long as you don't touch on the sovereignty and territorial integrity of China. Because that baggage, the historical baggage, is there in the minds of Chinese people. As long as you don't touch that, they don't bother much. In that sense, for Chinese leaders, it's a low-hanging fruit. They can address this issue much more easily than maybe other issues. Now, also, let me maybe because there are a few minutes, let me end by saying, if you truly want to understand China, you have to know Tibet history. You have to know the Tibet story. Unless you understand the Tibet issue, you will not understand China. This I can say quite affirmatively, because when Tibet was occupied in 1959, we went around the world and say, we are occupied, so do something about us. And all the neighboring countries and international community, there was some supportive. General attitude was, okay, it happened to you, but good luck to you. It will not happen to us. Now you see the headlines. In Japan, it's Senkaku Island. Shinzo Abe goes to Washington D.C. to get affirmative the assurance from the U.S. government that U.S. will come to defense or abide by the treaties on Senkaku Island. Then you read about East China Sea, Scarborough Island, Spratly Island. Now all the neighboring countries are saying, what's happening to us? I said, it happened to us 60 years ago. We told you it happened to us, it could happen to you. No one believed us. Now there's a satellite photographs of airfields being built in those islands, and everybody's wondering what's happening to us. But airfields are already built in Tibet 5 major airfields, 30 airports are already built in Tibet. Then there's one belt, one road strategy. Our people are puzzling as to is it good for economic development or not. That's the debate. But railway line was built in Tibet. When the main highway was built in Tibet first, our parents and grandparents' generation, in fact, had a very popular song. Chinese Communist parties are like our parents, because when they come, they shower us with silver coins. That was the song, because they gave silver coins to help them build roads. Once the roads were completed, first trucks came, then tanks came and occupied our country. The trucks came, then our trees were cut down, minerals are exploited. Even now, hydropower, major mega dams are built on Tibetan rivers nowadays. So you can clearly see it happening. So, and then I can give you many examples. For example, everybody talks about martial law was imposed in the month of June in Beijing at the time of Tiananmen Square. But first martial law was imposed in March of 1989 in Tibet. So anything that happens in Tibet happens in the rest of the world. Now I've shared this story. In Dharamsala, where the Tibetan administration is based, our computer server, a lot of countries, a lot of experts, hackers are interested in our server because the monk school of Toronto University found out that the malware and the Trojans that were sent by China to our servers in Dharamsala were modified, improvised, and then sent around the world. Various capitals. So I'm sure Japanese Foreign Ministry or Defense Ministry might be saying, how come our computers were hacked? If they check the malware, it's originated in Dharamsala. First they hacked our computers, then they improve on it, then they send around the world. So what happens to us first, it happens to others later. So hence, if you truly want to understand China, you have to understand Tibet. If you don't understand Tibet cause, then you will not understand China, because they're all a puzzle. This airfield is coming, Sankaku Island, all these neighboring countries. Even India, they're saying, oh, Nepal, look at Pakistan, Sri Lanka. Chinese are coming everywhere. Yes, true, because before Tibet was occupied, there was no border between India and China. Now they have more than 2,000 kilometers long border between China and India after the occupation of Tibet. Now with the border, India also thought at that time, okay, Tibet was occupied, maybe China will be content and leave us alone. Now they are in Nepal, they are in Pakistan, they are in Sri Lanka, they are in Burma, they are in Bangladesh. You can clearly see. So, it started with Tibet. Now international community want to do something. I think Tibet is the front line. Tibet is the first line of defense. And if things does not change in Tibet, it won't change. In that sense, Tibet also could be the catalyst in bringing transformational changes in China as well, because it will be for the first time the Chinese government will be implementing a liberal policies towards non-Han Chinese people. That's Tibetan people. So everybody is talking about nationalist expansionist design of China, but if you want to see a liberal aspect of Chinese regime, that seed can be planted and started with the Tibet issue. So Tibet is the test for the Chinese government to demonstrate their liberal attitude and policies, because now recently President Xi Jinping went to Davos and talked about China being the champion of globalization and liberalization. If that's the claim, then the test is Tibet. Let there be a liberal policies in Tibet, then we will believe them. For the international community also, if you want to defend your areas, first you have to support the Tibet issue. Otherwise, it raises a complicated issue. So with that note, I think my time is up. So it's a great privilege and honor to be here, and I want to thank the Foreign Correspondents Club and its chairman Khaldun Azari. Salam alaikum, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you very much for your insights. I would like to extend 1 year honorary membership to Mr. Lobsang Sangay, Prime Minister of the Tibet government in exile. This is for our club for 1 year honorary membership.
So I get a
Whenever
free
you come
hamburger?
back. Yes, but you have to pay for it, basically.
Oh.
Because we allow members to come here, but they have to spend because we are press club.
Oh.
We don't pay for anybody, and nobody pays for us. Basically.
Is that so? I don't have Japanese yen though.
It's okay. We take Tibet dollar or Tibet currency if you want.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, and have a nice.